What's up YouTube? Minda is back, and today we will be talking about how to wheelie an e-bike. But before we even start going close to our bikes, let's figure out how the wheelies actually work. Let's say we have a flat road, a bicycle and a cyclist on it. The center of the mass, and therefore the balance point, will be somewhere in the middle of the bike. Both front and rear wheels will be sucked to the road by the gravity. In order to do a wheelie, we would like to have some force stronger than the gravity pulling our front wheel up. If we get that force or momentum by, let's say, shifting our body weight backwards very fast, our center of gravity and the balance point will shift backwards, preferably straight over the rear wheel's axle. Here we are, wheeling. The first problem that we will encounter is that in real life, our tire is touching the road, generating friction and sending the front wheel down again. We could counterbalance that by rolling down the hill, or we could do some pedaling on a flat road to keep the front wheel going up. The second problem that we encounter is when we overdo it a little and our balance point shifts further back than the rear wheel axle, and then it's actually the time when it makes sense to have a helmet on your head, or you need to jump off. Another option is we could use the rear wheel brake to generate more friction on the rear wheel and the momentum that will send our front wheel down again. The real life problem comes when you want to do a long wheelie on a flat road. You keep pedaling not to fall forwards, your bike's speed is increasing, friction with the road as well, you are pedaling more, speed increases more, until you don't have enough strength or speed in your legs to pedal faster, and the front wheel lands to where it was planned to be by the guy who designed your bike. Very simple solution for that is to start practicing wheelies uphill. It will not allow your bike to gain speed, and you will be able to apply consistent force on the pedals to balance the front wheel in the air. The next level shit is when you learn to overtip the bike backwards and use enough of the rear brake to both slow your bike down and to return to the balance point over the rear wheel, but not too much so that it sends your front wheel down. By then you can do almost unlimited wheelies. So that was the main theory. Now let's get the bike. First we will need to choose a location. The smoother is your road surface, the easier it will be to learn the wheelie. The more bumps you have, the harder it will be for you to start with. Also choose a place where there is no people that you can injure around. This is very important, and don't scare anyone. No one likes the front wheel coming into their face. If you are totally new to wheelies, I recommend you to start learning not on an e-bike that has a heavy motor and a battery, but on like a hardtail bike, which is light, and it will be much easier for you to begin with. I can do much longer wheelies on my hardtail without the motor than on my e-bike. My e-bike is still a challenge for myself to keep the long wheelies, to maintain them going. When you start looking for that balance point, extra power from the motor just brings more uncertainty than it actually helps you. So it's actually harder to balance your bike in the balance position with the motor than without. But if you only have an e-bike, or if you're up for a challenge, it's not a big deal, it's still doable. I will be doing it on my e-bike today, and you can start as well. Both mid-drive motor e-bikes and the ones that have motor in the rear hub, even in the front hub, you can do wheelie. The only requirement for an e-bike is that it would have a pedal assist, because I don't have throttle myself on today. I need to order it and buy it, and then I need to make a separate video how to do the wheelies with only using the throttle without the pedal assist. What you will see in this video will only be valid for the e-bikes that have pedal assist, meaning that you spin the pedals and the motor does the rest. One more aspect to consider: if you're riding the full suspension bike, I would suggest you to lock the suspension, make it on the stiffest setting possible. If you have been through the theory, you have seen that the rear brake is something really important. If your e-bike has a brake cutoff sensors, you will need to disconnect them, because when you start to feather that brake to catch that balance point, it will disconnect the motor and your front wheel will just go down. So disconnect your brake cutoff sensors if you have them. Please be sure that your rear brake is in a very comfortable position when you will go up for the wheelie. So adjust the angle of your brake that it's comfortable, and also adjust the position on the bar so that you can use only one finger, keeping all of the rest to grab on the bars. Another aspect you should consider is the saddle height. If you put your saddle at the top, it will be super easy to pop that wheel up in the air, but it will be much harder to maintain it up there because your center of gravity will be much higher as well. If you put your saddle all the way down, then your center of gravity will be lower. It will be easier to control the bike, but it will be much harder to pop that wheel in the air. Also use it for a common sense. If you feel that your bike is trying to throw you off through the back all the time, that is a good sign that you might need to lower the saddle a little bit. And if you can't keep the front wheel up, you might raise the saddle up, and that will help you to balance the front wheel in the air. The comfortable height of the saddle will also depend on your body height and the geometry of your bike. So I cannot give you like a advice, set it here and it will be perfect. You will need to play around and see it. And the same is valid with the gearing. The easier is to pedal, the easier it will be to pop up the wheel, but you will not be able to maintain the wheelie long enough. The harder is to pedal, the harder it will be to pop up that wheelie, but the longer you will be able to maintain it. I normally ride on the third or fourth hardest gear when I do wheelies with the motor support, and I switch to something a bit more easier in the middle of the cassette when I do with a heavy bike and without the motor support. So the two things that will keep you safe, it's a decent rear brake. The better is your rear brake, the safer you will be, and the helmet. If you fall backwards, it's a good idea to have a helmet on. Now let's start practicing. The very first thing you want to do is switch off your e-bike. You will not need the motor for the first steps if you're just starting out. The next thing I will do, I will put my saddle somewhere in the middle position. It's a good idea to try and find your balance spot by holding on the rear brake and trying to a little bit like sit on your bike and see where that actually is. The next thing we're going to do right now is we will try to overdo it, and then when your bike falls, jump off it. The higher your seat, the easier to pop it up, the harder to jump off. The lower your seat, the harder to pop up, but the easier to jump off. That's why I suggest you start somewhere in the middle and find what works for you. Let's overdo a few wheelies. Okay, so how do I start? I will compress my front suspension and move my body weight quickly backwards while pedaling forwards. So I kick my bike in front of me and jump off it. And I will do several of these now to get comfortable with the feeling when I overdo the wheelie. If I put my saddle all the way down, it will be a bit harder to raise that front wheel up, but it's much easier to jump off. If I put my saddle way to the top, it will be super easy to pop the wheel up, a bit harder to jump off the bike. When you get comfortable with this, it's a time for the next step. I have a road with a slight incline here, and we'll try to do some wheelies without any motor assist. So I will set my saddle somewhere in the middle, and I will slowly approach the hill, and when I'm on it, I will do a little bit uphill. Don't worry if you're just starting, if you can't do it for too long, you will get there. Just repeat it until you get comfortable. So when you feel comfortable and you are able to go more than a few meters without using your motor, it's time to turn it on. I have 5 assist levels on this e-bike. I will use level 2 to begin with. And I will also put my saddle just a little bit higher than the lower position. I do this because I already know it should work for me in a situation like this. Let's see if it does. So here you have it, wheelie on an e-bike. Don't get discouraged if you don't succeed on the first try or the first day. Wheelie is a trick that requires some practice. And e-bike is not the easiest thing to do the wheelie on because you pedal, your motor gives some power, and you need to balance it all out. Your best friend is the rear brake. Your best friend to popping up the wheelie is the front suspension. Squish it, pop up, and keep practicing. I hope you found this video entertaining or useful. Consider subscribing if you want to see more videos about e-bikes or electric scooters. If you had some good time watching this video, hit the thumbs up button. If you think you wasted some time from your life, hit the thumbs down. In any ways, thank you all for watching, and I really hope to see you in the next one. I'm tired. Reikia biškį pailsėti.